This week on Supercars Torque, I review the ITM Auckland Super Sprint. Well, that was an interesting weekend of racing across the ditch. A lot to cover off in the race report, but first off, I'll start with a little bit of news that's happened over the last week. Dave Reynolds, we know where he is next year, no surprises, he's at Erebus again. The big surprise, 10-year contract. That's a long time. Now, when you think about it, like Scaife was at HRT for a long time, Winsbottom was at Tickford for a long time, Lowndes and Whincup at 888. But to actually put down pen and paper, I'm going to be here in 10 years' time. That's a big commitment. He obviously has a lot of confidence in there. And also probably if you look down the field, he's not going to be a Penske driver, I wouldn't have thought. He's not really a 888 kind of driver. I don't think going back to Tickford's on the cards for him. Walkinshaw, they shafted him a fair bit. Kelly's wouldn't want a bar of him again, I don't think. So he's with Erebus. He's very happy there, and he's going to be there. He'll see out the rest of his racing days, I'd say. I think 34 at the moment, so that'll take him to 44. I'd say that he'll finish his full-time career and, still be there for the Enduros under this 10-year contract. Other news, Bathurst is going to start at 11:30am this year. This is because basically the race is getting quicker and quicker. Less safety cars and that during the races, really. So they're trying to get the finish time as close as possible to kind of, the 6 o'clock news. When people are watching, there's a lot of people saying the best ratings of possibly ever for the Bathurst race was back in 2014 when we had those stoppages because the track fell apart, and I think it finished about nearly 7 o'clock at night, and the great ratings at that time of day. So that's the aim, to try and get it a bit later in the day, and they're also saying it makes it a bit easier for people coming into Bathurst just for the day to get there to watch the start of it. Just a bit weird basically having Bathurst as a kind of lunchtime start. I remember back in the old days you'd get up, kind of watch the practice or the warm-up session in the morning, go and have a shower, have some breakfast, and then start of the race at about 10 o'clock I think it used to start at. But, times change, so we'll roll with it. They're not going to, not going to listen to us fans on certain things, are they? We had some new liveries over the weekend. Andre Heimgartner, they had a special New Zealand livery for him. It looks great. The Kellys actually do a pretty good job with the liveries. Their cars, been looking great all year. And this one, great. I'd like to see it for the rest of the year. It makes the ordinary blue and orange kind of look that they have pretty ordinary. We also saw Walkinshaw. They became the Mobil 1 race team, obviously with Mega, whatever, into administration, not going to be on the side of the cars anymore. Mobil stepped up to the plate for the weekend. Not sure if that's a goodwill thing from Walkinshaw to make it look like, or make it look like they have sponsorship, or if Mobil has actually upped their involvement. Supposedly though, the mega deal was front loaded, so what that means is apparently they paid a lot of the sponsorship money early on in the year. So there's a few ways that the sponsorship happens during the year. Some will be, say, front loaded. I think some, not very often, but you probably have a rear loaded kind of one where you get a small portion up front, big chunk at the end, and some, usually they'd either be front loaded or progress payments during the year. You might find that you get a payment every month or every quarter or things like that, or maybe one at the start of the year, one at the middle, one to finish off the year. Supposedly this mega deal was front loaded, so Walkinshaw has got most of the funds for the year there. They're only missing probably a few progress payments towards the end, but they are looking for sponsorship. Super cheap. Yeah, I don't think we'll see super cheap on that car until the start of next year. Erebus had a bit of an update for the weekend. Not sure if just a New Zealand thing or whether this is going to carry on, but Penrite advertising their new green initiative. Their oil comes in a box. I think it has a bladder in it, a bit like a goon bag, as some people have suggested. And you put the box into recycling and you kind of crush the goon bag down and put it in the bin, rather than having, you know, a big plastic container that you can't do. Apparently you can't recycle once the oil and that's been in there, so it just goes into landfill. That's a great initiative from top Australian company. So James Courtney's come out during the week and said, you know, part of the reason why he's leaving Walkinshaw is because they don't have a Roland Dane figure kind of running the team, which Ryan Walkinshaw said he's quite happy because we don't need two Roland Danes out in the field. Yeah, I tend to agree with him on that one. One definitely enough. Yeah, so a lot of people are saying, you know, why would Courtney leave if he hasn't got anything lined up? I think he's got something lined up, but obviously can't announce it. Probably something in his contract at the moment that says he can't announce it, or, you know, maybe other people are already in that seat or something that are getting shuffled out, things like that. I think that's possibly why they haven't said that Scott Pye's going yet at the moment. I think that's giving Scott Pye a chance to, you know, negotiate with other teams and, you know, not kind of devalue his stock while he goes looking elsewhere. Find out more about that later. As far as I heard kind of months ago, I don't know where he's going, but I was told Courtney has a seat for next year and it's not at Walkinshaw's. So yeah, let's see where he ends up. And a lot of people are now saying, you know, he's got what he deserved after, you know, jumping out of Dick Johnson Racing at the time and, you know, things like that. He shouldn't have, you know, gone and taken the big bucks at HRT at the time. Yeah, it's great to think like that with rose-coloured glasses and that. He did win the championship with Dick Johnson and then go to HRT for a big money offer. But at the time also, Dick Johnson Racing was imploding. They'd spent a lot of money that they didn't have, and supposedly Charlie Shirkowalt, who's now owns the Team 18, he was a part owner of the team at that time, and apparently he was kind of, you know, putting into his own pocket to pay for stuff for Courtney's car for it to finish the championship, which he was out the door at the end of the year. Adrian Burgess, who was running the team, he was going off to Triple Eight and things like that. You know, it wasn't going to be roses there the year after. You know, I totally understand why James jumped ship as well. He wasn't the only one. And yeah, if you think it's fair that he's had bad results because of that, well, you probably don't know too much about what goes on in the sport. So there was some racing over the weekend, and straight up the aero changes obviously worked on the Holden. Everything's right again. We saw Triple Eight on pole, Shane Van Gisbergen. McLaughlin was way down 6th on the grid. How about that? And that's not all to do with the Holden aero changes, because the Tickford boys were up there as well. Just a bit of an off weekend for Scotty. Wing Cup, I think he started 12th. And then on the first lap he decided, you know, don't worry about braking for the hairpin. I'll just use Percat as brakes. It just baffles me that something like that can happen, and then we go, oh, we'll review it after the race. Let him run through the rest of the race, gets up on the podium, gets a trophy, and then, oh, we'll give him a 15-second penalty. And, you know, I'm not sure what was going on there. It was clearly his fault, you know. Typical kind of Wing Cup dive bomb, use someone else's brakes and then turn around and say, oh, I was just having a go. Yeah, well, I'm sure if someone did that to you, you probably wouldn't be too happy. And it's only a matter of time, I think, before someone does do it to him in a race that means something, possibly Bathurst. Other things that happened during the race, Winterbottom ran out of fuel. How you run out of fuel at that stage of the race has got me beat. Apparently they weigh the car or whatever and as they put the fuel in and the weights were wrong or something. There seemed to be a bit of head scratching there, and there was a bit of pointing at a couple of guys in techno uniforms that were on the fuel rig. So I think this is another reason why Charlie wants to step up to 2 cars as early as next year, because then he doesn't have to share a pit boom with anybody else, and they're in control of all these kind of things. If you've got some questions about that, ask me about it. We could, I could do an episode later on about the pit boom sharing and things like that, explain that a bit more. The Tickford clash, Waters and Mostert at it again. Teammates crashing into each other is just dumb, and at the time you had Waters coming out of the pits on cold tyres. Mostert was fully up to speed. Get on the radio, go, just let him go. What's interesting about this time, this is the first, the big one was at Bathurst last year, where I'm trying to think, it was whoever was Waters' teammate last year at Bathurst was in the car. His name escapes me right now. I can picture him in that. He was the bloke who drove with Nissan for quite a few years, I think. Anyway, similar kind of thing, different strategies and that. He cut Chaz off and Chaz punted him around, and they had a big cry about it. Well, get on the radio and say, hey, you guys, let's not ruin each other's races. Didn't really ruin Waters' race, but definitely ruined Chaz's, broke his car. And then Tim Edwards afterwards came out and blamed Chaz. Waters was the one who locked up and kind of crashed into him. Yeah, okay, Chaz Wells on the outside, but I think that's probably a bit more on the, Chaz isn't going to be there next year. Let's defend the guy who, is sticking with us for the future. In general, though, it was a good race. With the Winterbottom running out of fuel and having the safety car at that time, and we had the guys who short-filled earlier, the guys on, that had put a lot of fuel in and things like that. So people were running at different speeds depending on the car weight and when they'd stopped and things like that. So there was a lot of passing and a bit of moving around. The end results, Shane Van Gisbergen in first, Cam Waters ended up second, Dave Reynolds third, Scotty McLaughlin fourth, Lee Holdsworth fifth, and of course Jamie got relegated down to sixth with the penalties. And Richie made the top 10 at home, so that was a big jump up for him for the weekend. On Sunday we had race 24, and at the start of the race, and I thought we were getting a bit in, and I thought, haven't written down any notes about this race yet. It might be a bit of a quiet one. I'll do the news talk and talk about race 23, and then race 24, a bit of quiet one, which we have had quite a few. Sundays this year have been a bit quieter. The longer races seem to be a bit toned down. They seem to be going a bit more hell for leather on the Saturday shorter races, which is a bit interesting next year because they're all going to be longer races. We'll get more into that later. But the entertainment car came out after Dave Reynolds' car went into limp mode or whatever it was. It was just kind of idling along. What was funny about all of this is that he ended up kind of getting it going and limping back to the pits. Anyway, out came the entertainment car and picked up the wrong leader, and the yellow lights were on. Someone decided that, even though we've done this before and we should have learnt from our mistake, bugger it, I know better than, the officials and that, and I'll just go blazing past the entertainment car and make up my own rules. He's done it before. He's probably going to do this kind of thing again where he just decides he knows better than everybody else. I feel a bit sorry for Lee Holdsworth and Cam Waters and that. Did kind of screw them over. But in the end, there's a reason that the safety car comes out. This was a bit of an entertainment kind of come out. Dave's car was stopped, but then it got going again pretty quickly. Anyway, more about that later. Don't pass the safety car unless it's got its green lights on. It's pretty simple, people. Or everything that happened afterwards, these things happen. The safety car's out for a reason. You don't know better than the officials at the time what's going on. Who's to say? There might have been, marshals out on the track at the next corner, and he goes, "Oh no, bugger it, I know better," and go blazing through, and then go and kill someone. Don't pass the safety car unless they say you can. Pretty simple. Roland Dane came out and basically said the same thing. So your boss didn't even stick up for you this time. So anyway, could go on all day about that. I'm gonna not. Once again, if you've got some questions about this kind of stuff, leave them down in the comments. I'll definitely get around to answering them. At the end of the day, Scott McLaughlin got the win, so safety car was good for him. Van Gisbergen ended up second, Chaz third, Percat fourth, and that was great seeing the result. They haven't had the best year. He is in the top 10 of the championship, believe it or not. And after what happened on Saturday, where he was in a reasonable position and got punted out, great. Unfortunately, it wasn't a podium for him, but he was battling Chaz, so that was good. Todd Hazelwood in fifth, sixth was Pye, seventh was Simona. How about that? And Richie Stanaway and James Goulding were 9th and 10th. So, there were definitely were some... The field was a bit, moved around. But some of those guys had shown good pace over the weekend. Good to see some different people up the front. At the end of the day, Shane Van Gisbergen got the Jason Richards trophy. So that's handed out to the guy who gets the most points overall over the weekend. It's been a long time since we lost Jason, but it's one of those times when they show the clips on there, and it makes even someone like me a little bit emotional seeing that. It was definitely sad losing him so soon. So that's my review of the ITM Super Sprint. Lesson for the week: don't pass the safety car. We'll see what happens at Bathurst. Over the next couple of weeks, going to be doing a bit of a Bathurst preview, probably a big lead up to the main race for the year. Bit of news each week, and I'll be running through all of the lineup and kind of what I think the chances are that they're going to win the great race. So until next time, I'll see you later.
Put away your inhibitions, let the beast in you just get loose. We all young, wild and